identification ecosystem. It discusses 7 major ID systems, i.e. the birth certificates, voter ID cards, national health insurance cards, driver's license, passports, national identification cards, and the SIM cards. The authors focus on how the ID systems, especially the Ghana card and SIM card, shape access to citizens' rights and access to public goods and services and participation in the national economy. The report also includes an interactive map, which we will share more details with you on, that gives the reader an opportunity to interact and have first-hand information on the players in the ecosystem and how they interact with each other. This afternoon, in order to go through this launch, I will be inviting the various contributors to the report, as well as our partners that we worked with in coming up with the reports, to give a few comments on their experiences in coming out with this report. Also, we will have a live demonstration and some questions, answer some questions from our attendees on all our platforms. Without much ado, let me invite Emrys. Kindly introduce yourself from Caribou Digital and give us your opening remarks this afternoon.
Thank you, Teki. And as you said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. It's a great pleasure to be part of the launch of this ecosystem mapping report. And as Teki also mentioned, we're grateful for the support from the Australian Department for Foreign Affairs and Trade's support to this program through their Commonwealth Digital Identification Program through Caribou Digital. I'm a senior researcher at Caribou Digital, and I lead on a lot of our digital identification work. And we are really pleased to see this publication come out, mapping Ghana's digital identity ecosystem. It's part of a approach to thinking about digital identification work that we've been developing with the tool for digital identity ecosystem mapping that Teki referred to, being a tool that we've developed that is available for use by anybody looking to conduct a mapping of their identification ecosystems. The tool reflects a belief that very often focus and discussion around digital ID systems focuses on one system, one technology, whereas the reality is these technologies in the system exist in a wider socio-political context, and that understanding the wider legal, regulatory, political and social norms helps understand how one system, a driving license, passport, birth certificate, national identification system, how that operates, the implications of those systems and the consequences they may have for socioeconomic development. So the tool that we have developed, which we've also applied in Kenya, helps understand the relationships between these various aspects of a national identity ecosystem and helps identify where particular political economy issues are, where interests and incentives that shape decision-making lie, and the implications of those systems for particular vulnerable groups and the risks that they may present for particular demographics. So it's great to see that this tool being developed and applied in practice by the African Digital Rights Forum, and fantastic to see this report now coming out, particularly as Ghana is really in an interesting moment in relation to its digital identity ecosystem and the national identity process and systems that are currently being developed. And we hope that this tool is useful in framing understanding and supporting particularly attention to the impact of these systems and technologies for vulnerable and marginalized groups. And I'd just like to say a very particular acknowledgement to Teki for her leadership on this and the expert team that she's convened who've helped put together this report and conduct the research from both within Ghana and also wider afield. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of the participants in this presentation today. And it just goes for me to say thank you from myself on behalf of Caribou Digital, my colleague Tom Kirk at the London School of Economics, that there's more information about our approach with identification systems on our website. And I am really excited to hear from the rest of the participants and presentations today. Thank you again, Teki, and congratulations on putting together this really excellent report.
Thank you. Thank you, Emrys. At this point, I just want to bring the contributors in, and it would be good to introduce them. So there were various contributors to this report that we are reading. In no order, let me just introduce Dr. Emmanuel Owusu-Owari, who's with the Department of Information Technology at the University of Professional Service. Then we have Smith Oduro Mafu. I think you can also wave, who is also a PhD candidate with the Political Science Department at the University of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. We also have Mr. Emmanuel Paco Brown. He joined us earlier, but I think his connection is not too good, so we'll try and get him as well. He's the Vice President of ID for Africa Identity Council. And then we have Mr. Desmond Israel, who is the lead consultant at Information Security Architects and a lawyer. And then, of course, Emrys, yourself, you also contributed in helping us shape this report. And then Thomas Kirk of the London School of Economics, and our very own Rebecca Yemo, who was a project development and implementation manager at ADRH, and Florence, that really facilitated our focus group discussions, which brought very interesting results. Florence Toffa works with Mobile World Ghana. So at this point, I just want to invite the contributors to share their own experiences in a few minutes on how their perception of the project, some of the key findings that they think was interesting, which came out of the research work itself, and generally their own ideas about what they think this report can do and how it can benefit the Ghanaian society as a whole. I'll start with Dr. Owusu-Owari. Doc, are you there? I know we really put a lot of pressure on you, and at some point you had to review copious literature in order to enable us come to the conclusion that we have today. Can you share with us your own experience around the development of this report, its key findings, and how you think it will really help shape the future of our ID ecosystem?
Okay, thank you so much, Teki. I'm really excited that at long last this report on Ghana's IE, identity ecosystem, is being launched and to have been part of the production. And for me, as an academician, it is a feather in my cap, and I can always cite it as one of my articles or reports, you know, and in line with my promotion, you know. That's on the lighter side. Yeah. Concerning the projects, my fond memories concerning the project has been the teamwork, the solid team with varied background that we have with our able, affable, and firm Teki, who always provided the interesting project environment for us to do the brainstorming sessions. I can well remember Desmond, very versatile, all-rounder. And my fond memory of him is the Kumu map and how he dealt with it and unpacked everything to do with it. Yeah, and of course, our project coordinator, Becky, she was really on top of the communications, prompting us and sending us the reminders. And generally, the project architecture, I was very much happy about the project architecture. It was well laid out and well coordinated. The allocation of work and the DEX research, and each of us had to do a lot of work in that respect. The data entry, I quite remember the Excel data entry, back and forth entering, and so many iterations. Then, of course, the write-up and the review. The interesting thing about the write-up and the review was that we all had to review each other's work, notwithstanding our varied background. And of course, the feedback from our oversight team, Thomas and Emery. At some point, we thought Thomas was just being overly critical, but yeah, I mean, this is the final output, very solid output, and I'm so glad that part of the team. The brainstorming sessions, yes, were very, very good, very, very productive. Each time we met and brainstormed, we always came out with some solid output. And of course, the Kenya's template, I quite remember adapting the Kenya's template. And the key point was that we needed to adapt it to our context and not just taking it a hook, line, and sink. So, and that also was a good experience, showing that each country has a different context. And of course, as far as the project execution is concerned, the team tools, the conference meeting, and the shared folder, and all that. Yes, of course, we also had our agreements and disagreements on the various topics. And sometimes we dived into the politics of it. I mean, you can't discuss IE without the politics of it. Yeah, so when we were reviewing and discussing various aspects of it, yes, we had our agreements and disagreements. Yeah, so in terms of the development, this have been my experience. The findings, and for me, the key findings have been the recognition of the card blocks, the duplication of the processes, the systems, the people, and all that. And for me, that was the key finding, and it's something which is not unique to Ghana alone. And for the audience, the government in particular, looking at such a report, they could pick some key related policies as far as this report is concerned, especially the political aspect of it, which came out strongly as far as IE systems are concerned. They tend to lead to the card glut because often at time the political players, that the political parties who are key stakeholders in the IE ecosystem, they have varied interests in card systems. So I think the report pointing out the issue with the card glut and its economic effect in terms of costs, duplication of infrastructure, and all things. For me, it was a very good thing to highlight. Yeah, of course, and the international development partners, for them who provide the financial support, would also want to look at this report and take a cue, so that the report, the support that they provide for the developing countries, with this report, it will inform them and they could also influence and its implementation. Yes, for me, so that's for me is the key. And of course, the civil society organization, in our report, we recognize that directly they weren't much too involved in voicing their stance on it. Of course, they were indirectly, but I think with this report and the findings, they would have enough information to sensitize them and trigger their interests in contributing to ID systems. As the report brings about, it gives a varied views as far as the ecosystem is concerned. The legal aspect, the political aspect, the technical aspect, and all that. So anybody, any reader looking at the report will have quite a number of things to take from the reports. Yeah, so I think in the nutshell, these are my experiences, and in terms of the findings, what I want to say. I think when I go along, I'll come back.
Thank you. I will just turn to Emmanuel Brown to also share his own experience in supporting the development of this report. And what do you think were the key takeaways in terms of the findings that the report came to?
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm joining late. I had some little technical hitch, so my apologies. I'm glad to be part of the launch of this very important document on the ID ecosystem of Ghana. From the start, the project looked a bit, simple, but as we commenced, we realized it wasn't so simple like we were told. Emrys, you were down, you explained to us, so we thought it was going to be smooth ride all through, but it wasn't so. We had several ups and downs and several, discussions, disagreements here and there, like Dr. Owari said. But fortunately, we were able to, surmount all the challenges. And today, I'm glad we are launching the publication. This study has been very important to me, and looking at the ID ecosystem in Ghana. We don't have any, for now, from where I stand, I have not seen any comprehensive publication on the ID ecosystem of Ghana. We have bits and pieces of such, publications, and we have been able to, through this project, we've been able to put together a detailed, research report, and it's going to help from the level of government, the NGOs, civil society organizations, then the international development agencies. They're all going to benefit from this. So it's going to guide them. And even those solution providers, technical vendors, they will know when they are coming to meet an institution in Ghana, how to go about the discussions on ID. It's been a big project to the extent of, moving all the way to border towns and trying to, initially we were not thinking of going, we were told, Emrys, you remember, you were telling us a lot of the work is, text research, and you will not be spending time in the field and all that. At the end of it all, we had to do the best for Mother Ghana and for Caribou Digital. You, Emrys, and your team, we needed to make sure there is value for money, whatever you have invested. And so it's a good publication. I like the graphics and everything that went into it. And I would say thank you too for the finishing, the formatting, the layout and all that. It's come out so well. though it's PDF, I haven't seen the physical, output, the printout, but this, virtual copy or digital copy is nice. And we pray, we build upon it. It's a living document, as we were all made to understand. And when we started the discussions, we realized that, it will need constant improvement, constant, inputs to updates, to make it, a living document, to make it very something useful to almost every player or stakeholder in the ID ecosystem in Ghana and even Africa and the world at large. So basically, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Smith, I think we should all clap very well for Smith, because when all of you feigned tiredness, he was the last man standing, making sure that we clean the report to make it, worthwhile. And so thank you very much, Smith, for really helping us throughout this. But I'm sure that you also had some insights from where some of the findings that came up from the research. I know you've done research in the area. Were there any things in the report that you thought was really eye-opening? Looking at previous research you've done, and then what came out of this? It would be nice to highlight for our audience this afternoon.
Thanks for having me on the project and for today's event. I would say that one of the interesting things for me was the interviews with the women. I have not in my research yet seen such people actually talking to women in Ghana about their experiences with ID systems. So I really liked that input from there, because then I started appreciating better their specific circumstance. Often what we do is to generalize. We would go like the citizens, and that really hides the nuances of the effects that people face and the implications of ID systems for them. Even when we decide to maybe disaggregate a bit, we talk about maybe political parties or ethnic groups, but that still hides the specific impact on women. So Florence and everybody, thanks for that job. I often will have to go back to it to actually find a way to integrate it into my own work. Because when I was doing my work, I came down to Ghana for research. I wanted to do that, I didn't. So now it's like a free resource that I can easily draw on. So that was like one of the best highlights for me. And I believe Desmond was also writing a bit about Goro Boys somewhere in the report. And it's clicked in my head that, wow, it's also a perspective that we have not really paid attention to. What exactly are they doing? How are they enabling access to ID systems and also undermining access to ID systems? So even going forward, it's one of the things that we have to possibly also look at, like maybe talking to them, because to a certain extent, they have also become stakeholders in how people access ID systems or not. So that is also a very critical insight from there. And the other thing would be about civil society organizations. And I think that is something I had noticed in my work already, that there's a very short-term approach to discussing and engaging with ID systems in Ghana by CSOs and think tanks. And I think in our discussions, it came up that for most of them, they are generalists. They deal with the flavor of the month issue. So we don't really have CSOs and think tanks that necessarily focus on ID systems. And maybe going forward, it's one of the things that we should be looking at. Even if it is not dedicated to ID systems, it is important for them to have a longer attention span for ID issues. Often you find Imani coming in, for instance, and it's so short-termist that, okay, let's say Fulani people are not being registered, they talk about it, Occupy Ghana will come and talk about it, but nobody is actually following up. And it's only going to be the case if there's a certain level of dedication to the issue, even if it is not a whole CSO dedicated to this or think tank dedicated to this. Even if it's one person, one expert on board whose issue or whose job description is to track these issues, that would be very, very important. So I think those are three things that our work is really bringing out, and I hope that will be picked up. But generally, I have enjoyed working with a team. And Emirates was the first to introduce me to the project. I like the idea. It fits very nicely with my work. And then when I was introduced to the larger group, I realized that actually I had known them when I came to Ghana. I was able to visit them during some of their training sessions, and I had become acquaintances with them already and on Facebook too. So for me, it was like coming back to a family. And fortunately for me, they accepted me, and my time zone is quite brutal, but still they managed, because there were times I couldn't just wake up for the meetings and nobody was angry. They just accepted the fact that sometimes these things happen, and I really appreciate that effort. The other thing I would say is the level of expertise on this team, and I think Emirates should be paying more for that level of expertise. We have lawyers there, we have information security, cyber security people there, we have academics there, we have actual practitioners there, and I think this is like one of the most versatile teams anybody could assemble for such a project. And going forward, I hope maybe the team can come back together again with all the experiences, the good ones, the bad ones, learn from them and work on other projects. So I would say that well done to all of us. I hope to do more work with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Smith. We will definitely be falling on you to wake up at dawn and do more work. Yeah, but I'm very happy you mentioned one of the significant parts of this report, which is the focus group discussions. And this was really an eye-opener for all of us, and that's why we have Florence Toffa, who really facilitated that aspect of the work for us. She had to go on the ground and interact with the women and the children. And so I want to bring Florence in here to share her own experiences. Unfortunately, we had the full report of some of her findings, but it's not everything that managed to get into the report, so whoever may be interested can always email us so that we can share more. But Florence, this is your opportunity to share with us your interaction in the field. We were sitting down and thinking things, but you really had a first-hand experience. So share with us what you sought to do with the focus groups and some of the key findings that came out in your interactions.
Thank you very much, Taki, and the entire team for the opportunity to work together on this project. I love working with women, and all through my career, anytime there is anything related to women and girls, it's always an eye-opener for me to dig deeper and see what I can find to help improve every situation. So this wasn't an exception, right? So I managed to deal with two main groups. So I have the senior high school girls, and then I have women who are either illiterate, they work in the stone quarry field and peri-urban area in some parts of Accra. And so for me, the project was really an eye-opener for me to actually look at what is happening in the ID ecosystem. One of the things that struck me was the myth about, number one, is the fact that people really go through a lot of difficulties to get an ID, like serious difficulties. Some people spend almost about 1 month to chase IDs, go up and down, and some women have to wake up like dawn, sleep over with their kids, like people really. So I think that this report, if the government can have access to it and make some provision, either whether it is national ID card, whether it is a passport, whether it's any form of ID card, Ghana card, like all the participants I interviewed went through what we call HELL to be able to get their ID cards. And it wasn't easy for them, especially for the fact that they were women and they have kids. And some of them, they have to go early, queue, and then come back, take care of their kids before they go back, spend several hours of not working. You know, that was really an eye-opener. For some of us who acquired our IDs, I would say depending on your level, sometimes it's a bit easier, but majority of them, it hasn't been easy. And also for the senior high school girls, they've always been assisted. Either they go together with their parents. So you can imagine the magnitude of time that parents have to spend on securing an ID for their ward. If your ward is 18 and they still have to go and queue together with them, wake up early in the morning, like 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. and be there to be able to get an ID. So this whole system of acquiring an ID has been, like, for me, during the focus group discussion, has been an eye-opener. The second thing I also want to talk about is the myth surrounding the acquisition of some of the ID cards, like, for instance, passports. People didn't think that the girls and the women, they didn't think that it was important to acquire passports, because they said they won't travel. They think that acquiring a passport, you need some huge amount of money to be able to acquire passports. And also for the young girls, they think that, look, if it's only the men who can travel, it's only the men who can acquire passports. For them, as a young ladies, as a woman, they are not allowed. They can't. So it's a myth. The myth surrounding acquiring certain passports as well. It's only the myth surrounding acquiring certain passports as well. And also for the women who are working in the informal sector, they don't even know what it is to even say, I have a passport. They have no idea. And also for some of them, when you even mention other forms of IDs like driving licenses, it's like, look, when am I going to get a car? I don't even have an access. You know, so all the myths, there are specific myths surrounding acquiring certain kinds of IDs. And I think that we need a bit of education on that. Having said that, one of the IDs that have also been of huge importance, I didn't think that it was that important to students, was the National Health Insurance card. And all students, and some of the students needed it as a guarantee, as a form of an insurance to be able to attend senior high school. Without it, they were not accepted in senior high school. I thought that, look, once you go to school, you are admitted, and it's a roller coaster. You write your exams, you fail or you pass. But it was, for some of the schools, for most of the schools, a requirement that you have an ID card. Why? National Health Insurance. Why? Because they said that when they are sick, that is the ID card that will be used to take you to the hospital. So all in all, and also for the mobile money, look, we can't overemphasize the importance of mobile money, especially to the group that we are dealing with, to women. Some of them have said that, look, having a mobile money account is like a gift, because they can save money in it. It helps them to reduce their expenditure, because if the money is in the account, then they wouldn't have to be spending it. But if they have the physical cash, you're just buying this and buying that. So it's a form of savings for them. For some of them, when their award is in school, those days that you have to physically travel and give and remit funds to your ward, now it has been cut because of the mobile money. So you see, the mobile money has really added a lot of value to the lives of women, and I also want to emphasize that. So those are some of the highlights that I've identified, and there are other highlights that I submitted in my report during the focus group discussion as well.
Thank you, Florence. As I mentioned, Florence's full report is available. So if anybody is interested, you can just email us at info@Africa Digital Rights Hub, and we'll do well to share the copies. Last but not the least, the man we call the Kumu guy, he he had a very, I won't call it difficult, but we all nicely left the development of the Kumu map to him and made sure that we stressed him a lot to come up with the interactive map. So I want to bring Desmond in at this point to really walk us through the map, because I think that the map is really also the highlight of this report. There's no way you can look at the report without the map. And I think the map really brings into fruition the entire picture of the Ghana's ID ecosystem. And so Desmond will just walk us through the map for those of you who would want to go there and interact. And I will encourage everybody listening to us today to, right after the launch, go online and then look at the map and interact with it. It provides a lot of learning. So I'll hand over at this point to Desmond to walk us through the map and how the map behaves. Desmond, over to you. Desmond, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so, well, like already said, the Kumu map became my baby. In fact, I think now I'm a certified Kumu map developer. And so that was, apart from the research, that was the major part for which I played a role on this team, and all the experiences have been shared already. There's nothing really to add to that. But the map, which serves as your lifeguard to the report, now.
Desmond, we are losing you.
Otherwise called words. Sorry?
Yeah, your connectivity just went off. We lost you there, so kindly come back again.
Okay. Hello, is it okay for now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I was pointing out that for you to be able to access the Kumu map, there's a URL which is kumu.io, kumu spelled Kumu.io, input output. So kumu.io, you use that in your web browser, it sends you straight to the Kumu portal. You create an account and then you are able to access the publicly made available maps, either by subscription or by way of the way the map is represented. You could probably access it for free. Without wasting much time, I just want to just take you through briefly what to expect when you get online and you are viewing the Ghana ID ecosystem. For me, Kumu itself intrigues me because it was actually able to plot every single element within the ecosystem. So elements, you are looking at the IDs themselves. So these boxes that you see here are actually the credentials. What you would call the ID, Kumu calls them the credentials. And we have a little nice legend here, a bit of introduction and the Ghana flag. It varies from country to country. The Kenyans did not put a flag there. I think we love the Ghana flag so much, so we couldn't do without it. And then a little brief about what is in there. So you can collapse the map, and then you have a full view of it this way. There's a nice little legend here which does all the magic. So if you look at the legends, you see from ministries, government department agencies with register, government department agencies, regulatory authorities, private services, credentials, which I've said earlier on, also represent the IDs, and then civil society organization, international governmental organization, political parties. So the top 10 actually gives you those basic elements that makes up our ecosystem. Like I said earlier on, it varies from country to country. There are places where you actually see centralized agencies and things like that. But we had to develop this map to be very peculiar to Ghana's own ID state. So we have government agencies who actually hold register by law. Another important information I need to give you is that the representation here reflects both policy, legal frameworks, and then interviews and actually information that was picked up from the ground. So the government department and agencies with register are actually elements in the ecosystem which the law gives them hold the information about the personal data that they collect or the information about the various IDs that they issue out. So DVLA has its own register, the EC has its own register, Passport Office has its own register, and things like that. And then you look at those without register, but they are also government departments. They play a role in the ecosystem, and the various roles that they play. So the Bank of Ghana was considered because of the financial sector. The National Pension was also considered in there. The Data Protection Commission was considered. The National Communication Authority, amongst others. And of course, there couldn't be the ecosystem without the private services. And some of you on the call may probably know about GVibe from V Systems. You could know about Approve from Inclusive. These are all private players within the space. VS and Margins Group and all these people are GCNet. They are all important players within the various groups, within the ecosystem, sorry. Civil society was also considered in there. In the international non-governmental organizations was considered. If you check this element, for instance, we were dealing with the International Civil Aviation Organization, which has a little bit of input to make, support to give when it comes to passports. Of course, when you come down, it finishes with the political party. Now, these lines that you have here are important, very, very important. For every line that you see, we've tried to explain the legend there. So when you see this blue line here connecting any, choose the credential. I'll go into the map, just take two or three of the elements in order that I'm trying to point out here. The green line shows you that the ID validated by that particular entity. So the lines are creating relationships between the various elements within the ecosystem. So you could see a relationship between the credential, which is the ID itself, and maybe the issuer, which could be probably an agency with a register. If you go down, you have other lines. The purple here says provides information. First one governs, so that will tell you the relationship between, say, a ministry and an issue agency. And then
that's when you're connectivity.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Yes, we lost you a bit.
Please help me out
you were on the relationship between the research and advocacy. Hello.
Advocacy. Okay. So the point I was making on the can you hear me?
Yes, but you keep drifting off and on. It's a bad connection day. Yeah, but I think you can go ahead. Do you think that maybe if you put off your video, it would be a bit more stable? Oh my, we lost Desmond there. Okay. Desmond,
hello?
Can you hear? Yes.
Yes, I can hear you now. For some reason, I'm having a terrible connection all of a sudden.
Yeah,
My
so I was
apologies,
saying
but
that
this one
if
goes
it's
the
going to
other
be
way.
a problem, you could turn off the video so that, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a video. Okay. All right. So is this?
Are you saying something?
Yes, I'm asking if you can hear me better now.
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, you can see my screen as well.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I will need you to be doing that for me with the way my connection is behaving. Okay, guys, sorry about that. It's just internet connection. So let me just go on. The research and advocacy, I was pointing out that it brought us closer to the CSOs. So for me personally, I was for the first time getting in touch with the consumer advocacy concerning ensuring that the SIM card registration under the law was being enforced by the telcos. I think for a long time, a lot of people may not have seen the importance about the players within the ecosystem, but this map and the work that went to the full report actually brought some of these things out. So when you're using the map, you see Imani in there, you see Alliance for Reproductive Health, right? And an interesting revelation about those people was how they are able to, leverage the conversation concerning the birth certificates. And there's some intriguing statistics about the birth certificates that was done by UNICEF, which was also captured in our report somewhere. The fact that the people with less or no formal education find it difficult to even go for birth certificates, the impact it has on them in accessing reproductive health and things like that. You also see the Progressive Alliance movement and the little that they did concerning, voters registration and the advocacy that they did. Where interesting thing that also happened is because we had a lot of political parties and trade unions, we had to, ingeniously come up with strategies of amalgamating, presenting them as a single element. So just to jump straight into the map and take a few elements to explain, I was on the political party, so just go there. If you split up with the political party, okay, so now I chose political party from the left side of the map where my mouse is hovering. If you go, from the right side of my map where the mouse is hovering, if you go to the left side, it gives you the description of that particular element. So in this case, this element is a political party element. You can actually see from the legend here. And there's some sort of brief description about that particular element. So in the case of the political parties, the report or the map gives you some brief about the various political parties, who are they, where they've been, and then we take you down into the actual drill down on the tables. So for instance, you're looking at what is that political party? Is it a credential issuer? Is it an advocacy? So it's an advocacy and it's a credential issuer at the same time. You ask me why. It's a very simple reason that the political parties do issue political party ID cards. Albeit it's not something that is so universal in our ecosystem. It is relevant when it comes to identifying those members of the political parties and how they can access various privileges that comes with being part of those political parties. So you look at the legal mandates that gives that element the existence, which is the Political Parties Act. Then you look at the various leadership. We try to represent almost all the leaderships that are represented for the major political parties. And then whether they own register, whether there are influence methods in there by which the cards or the issuing credentials can be influenced, in its collection and the issuing itself. And then the various interests that they have in the ID ecosystem. So we know the political parties themselves are interested in the voters register. They are also interested in their own political party ID cards because that also allows them to determine who the bona fide members are. And then you have the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, who are huge stakeholders when it comes to voter registration, etc. Let me jump and take one of the elements that deals credentials. I'll go for the Ghana card. It's been our recent conversation now. So the Ghana card is represented ID you can acquire. So whenever you see credential, you are actually looking at an ID you can acquire. And for you to know what is made up of, a little brief about it on your left, which is what I'm scrolling through, with various statistics, you know, as in the coverage, the population size, and then very interesting things that I would like you to also take note of: identity. Recent times, there's been a lot of conversation whether one should even at all, and whether the birth certificate it's a good grounds for voters. And I think in all the conversation, what personally came out as interesting to me was that I realized that people did not even know, when you speak about the ID ecosystem, you have functional IDs in there, and you have foundational IDs and foundational documents which allow functional IDs. So it gives you that kind of insight. So you are able to see the tag. So you see the tag here. It's a foundational identity, and it's also a functional identity. So it means I can use it to acquire other things, whilst I can also use it as a basic identity, which is the reason why the Ghana card is actually being issued out to citizens of Ghana. Then there's some of the tables from the back end of Kumu, which is showing up beautifully on the interface, are things like the enrollment requirements. So about the card, you may not know about that credential, you may not know about that element and the role they play in the ecosystem. But when you tap on that element, you get full details about what they do. So in this case, the Ghana card, which is the last example I'm going to use for credential base, gives you the enrollment requirements. So you get to know what you need to have before you can acquire a Ghana card. Then the enrollment process, what you need to go through before you can acquire the Ghana card. Then the enrollment location, where you need to go to, the cost, whether this is going to cost you a fee, and then what is collected of you. So by graphics and biometrics, and we've stated clearly, like I said earlier, some of these things are coming directly from the law that governs, or the policy documents that governs how these files are supposed to be issued. And then the coverage that has been done so far, as at the time that the map was coming up, we're dealing with about 4.8 million issued out of the 29 population. I know now they've done more than that, absolutely more than that. But just before I forget, this is also a map that is a live map. So it's a living creature, for lack of a better word. So we'll be able to be updating it with relevant current information so that it leads to its meaning. Of course, suppliers, who are the people working on it? Is the card modifiable? What's the use of the card if I have one? Or what's the use of that credential if I have one? Any other information that is related to that credential, and of course the references that goes with it. And then the image that you see here is actually what you're seeing up here. So that's just about the Kumu map. Trying to go through every single element would not be the best practice. But before I leave you, I will just take one of the agencies with the register. Where's the Electoral Commission? Okay, so I tap on the Electoral Commission. So you can see the Electoral Commission also has a brief where they get their legal mandate from, the governance structure, the leadership, the power that they wield, and everybody knows that the Electoral Commission is an independent constitutional body. They have even touted it in a number of cases where one would say that they were trying to sort of like downplay accountability on them, and they've said things like, we are an independent constitutional body, we are not accountable to anybody, and then you have had lawsuits against them. Yes, that's where that muzzle flex is coming from, because they are an independent constitutional body, but you can take them on when it matters. And then whether they own a register, indeed they own a register. For the purposes of the biographics and the biometrics, you refer to the voter's ID card, because that is actually the ID card that they issue. Then we have coverage, the enrollment cost, the enrollment location, the enrollment processes, and then storage, supplier, technology that is being used, and any other information, just like you saw earlier. So wherever you see reference to a particular credential or another element within the map, it means that the information has been given extensively there already, and there will be no need to repeat it in the database and clog it up with information. I hope you found the map exciting. Like I said, I can't go through every single element, but this is exactly how the map works. You may have questions trickling up in your mind. If it comes up, I'll do my best to answer them. But thank you so much. And just to tell you, this map gives life to the report that is yet to be launched. Take it back to you.
Thank you, Desmond, for the very comprehensive breakdown of the map. I would like to say to all our audience that the best way to experience the map is to get access to it and then experience it yourself. There are various elements. If I'm not mistaken, I think more than 30 elements on it. So Desmond could not have gone through everything, but you have a better experience looking at it, and there's a whole wealth of information. And apart from the map, which the report forms a part of, the report has about 9 chapters of very easy to read content. I will, at this point, I know we have a few audience. Desmond, do you want to take down your screen for me?
Yes.
Yes, we have a few audience. Maybe at this point, I don't know who can elevate them. If there are any questions on the attendees on the Zoom, I can't monitor Facebook now. So for the attendees on Zoom, if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand and then we will elevate you to ask your questions. Are there any questions from our attendees? Okay, I have a hand from Mawaki. Desmond, do you want to elevate him so that, or anybody from ADRH, so he can ask his question? Mawaki, you are here now. I believe you can unmute yourself. If you want to show your face, you can do that and then talk.
Yeah, thank you. Do you hear me?
Loud and clear.
I just have a quick question. Is it the intention to include in this map, and I guess in the report, all the digital, all the identification system, identity credentials that exist in the country, or only some of them? Because I was a little surprised to see that the membership of political parties is part of this, which is maybe kind of delicate, and it's not really a national ID scheme. So what's about that?
Yes, so for the, and I think anybody else can add, for the map, we tried as much as possible to represent it as the ecosystem. So we gave, in terms of the map highlights everybody that makes up the ecosystem. And when you go into the map, it provides a breakdown of why they are part of the ecosystem. Some of them are there because they are contributors to either credentials or they give out their own credentials, whether private or public. Some are there because they influence the kind of credentials that are issued. Some are there because they provide technology or other forms of support. Some are there because they are regulators within the ecosystem and they regulate one or other aspects of it. So that's what happens with the map. In terms of the report, however, if you really know the Ghana ecosystem, we realized that there were so many credentials that we could not have included everything because we wanted the report to be easily readable and accessible to a lot of people. And so we focused on what we call key credentials. So for the report, we focused on birth certificates, we focused on voter ID cards, we focused on health insurance, cards. We focused on the national ID cards, and then the SIM cards as a private card. The reason for the SIM card is because of, you know, it provides a very key ID, as Florence noted, especially for the deprived communities. And they use this card for their interactions a lot when it comes to mobile money and other services, especially for let me call it, you know, the communities that are otherwise are not able to access some of these major credentials. And so we focused on, for private sector IDs, we chose to focus on the SIM card because of the critical role that SIM card plays, you know. But the map really gives you a broader overview of the ecosystem and tells you who is who in the ecosystem, what role they play, and how they interact within the space. I hope I've answered your question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Teki.
Thank you.
Teki, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry, I keep doing this. So there's a question.
There's a question in the chat.
Yes, there's a question in the chat that says, does the report talk about credibility levels of the various IDs and how they can be made more credible? I think, I don't know whether, Emmanuel Kwakwa, I think you can respond to that, the credibility of the IDs that we looked at. Emmanuel, are you there? Okay, or Dr. Oswawari, do you want to respond to that? I don't want to be the one talking, so any of the other contributors can respond to, or Desmond.
Okay, the question was to do with whether the map considered or the report considered credibility levels. The simple answer is no, we did not consider credibility levels as like an area of the research, but you would glean from even the report that has been published, the various interaction between various issues that have happened with the credentials, the things that were making the news, how the acquisition were. You had challenges with the acquisition and things like that. So in the DVLA case, for instance, which is one of the things that I looked at, I chanced upon the Guru Boys. The Guru Boys is actually a concept of outsiders who are not workers of DVLA, but they get the opportunity to get into the system and then generate these IDs by using persons within the DVLA system, you know, to get the IDs for people outside. And whereas it was creating accessibility to the cards, I also find out that it was some kind of threat to the credibility and the quality of the cards that comes out, because how sure are you that you're actually getting the card that has been issued by DVLA? Because this most of the time were not delivered to you by DVLA. It was delivered to you by these agents that have become notorious and had the name Guru Boys. So that was one credibility thing that came up there. But like I said, the report did not set out to try to, like, you know, benchmark the various cards and tell you which one is credible and which one is not. I would like to say that all the cards that were discussed, especially the main national IDs that featured on the map, are IDs that actually had the law backing them, that they must be issued. So we looked at it from that angle and make sure that we determine who has power, who is able to issue, what sort of coverage do they have, and the impact. So when you see, even on the usage side, you could see that we were discussing things to do with the impact. So if I have, for instance, passport, how far could I use it as both a foundational and a functional document or a functional ID? You compare that to, say, the voter's ID card, compare that to the Ghana card. I remember Emmanuel Paco and I were having that back and forth, and Teki comes in and says that, look, yes, the Ghana card by law is supposed to, be that one with all the muscle, but look, when we hit the ground, it is not the case. And sometimes we wouldn't want to accept it, but those were some of the things that came out. If you get to read the report, you'd be able to touch base with some of these things, but your question is straightforward. The report did not set out to benchmark credibility about the IDs.
Thank you, Desmond. Yes, Smith,
Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
I think Desmond has covered the grounds on that. I'll quickly add that to a certain extent, our report was also a negotiation of the credibility challenges, because anybody familiar with the Ghana ecosystem would know that the quest for a new voter's ID card is a question of credibility. The existing cards are not trusted, so then we should have a new voter's ID card. The quest for SIM registration is also about credibility questions, because people think that, okay, people are using SIM cards with false identities, so let's have a tidier SIM registration regime. And overall, the Ghana card itself is also about solving that credibility challenge, where there's a card glut and people don't even trust who is holding which ID card and whether that ID card is really representative of that person. I remember in our conversations, there was a discussion about the digital address system and its use in the Ghana card. And I remember Teki would use the expression that garbage in, garbage out. So if somebody takes a friend's digital address and goes to register for the Ghana card with it, already we are undermining the credibility of that system, because we cannot really trust the Ghana card locations and the digital addresses that come with those Ghana cards. So even if we don't explicitly present the report as one about credibility and integrity, I think most of the discussions are centered on that, because if you take the political parties and the contestations that they have about the Ghana card, about the EC's voters ID, it's a question of credibility too. Yeah.
So, Benjamin, I hope we've tried to answer you. There's a comment and I think a question from Bilal. He says a really comprehensive view of the ID ecosystem in Ghana. It's clear that there's a lot of data processing happening. Will your report highlight some of the concerns raised around the processing of personal data in political campaigning and slightly further advertising? Apologies if I have missed the point. I joined a bit late. Bilal, thank you for your question. I think I'll take this. So we really looked at the role of the Data Protection Commission in helping with the appropriate processing of personal data within the ecosystem. What we did not seek to do is to dig down in detail the issues that are happening, especially around political campaigning and processing of personal data and advertising. But we highlighted some key issues that had happened in the ecosystem around supposed sale of personal data from one entity to a private party, and some of the issues, the regulatory issues that had come up, and what has been done and has not been done. So that's essentially the kind of things we looked at. I'll take one last question, then we can launch, so you can all go and have access to your maps and reports. If there is anyone in the attendees, please raise your hands, and then we can bring you to the platform so you can ask your questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any hand. I'm just assuming that this is the good point. Desmond, are you ready for us? I can't hear you.
Yes, I'm ready for you.
Okay, so at this point, we want to, formally launch this report with a little video. Desmond, are you sharing? I can't seem to.
I've shared it. It's playing.
Oh, wow, I can't hear anything. Can anybody hear anything?
I can see but cannot hear any sound.
Yeah. So I believe the report, this is just running through the various chapters that you will see in the report. You will find chapters on the digital ID systems. You will find chapters on So thank you very much. Consider the report duly. Thank you very much. Consider the report duly launched. I'm trying to, I realize that I have a few copies here that I want to show with you, the hard copies. The soft copies can be accessed visiting our website at www.africadigitalrightshub.org. And we've also shared to everyone on the Zoom platform the link to the copies. I'm now trying to put off my virtual background so that I can share with you the image of the report. So this is what the report looks like. And you can, write to us if you want hard copies for us to share a copy with you, but you can download copies.
Becky, you're on mute.
Taki, you are on mute. You are on mute.
Okay, so this is, sorry. This is the report. This is what it looks like. There are various chapters. The first looks at our acknowledgement, and so you go through the various chapters through it, and it goes all the way to the bibliography and other things, and provides more details. So please do well to download a copy and share with others. We have shared the link to the map itself. This, Desmond, please mute yourself. We have shared the links to the map in the communications here. We've also shared the link on our website to the report, which also has another link to the map. So kindly go ahead, review it, enjoy it, and give us good feedback so that maybe the next updated version would be a better one from now. Thank you for everyone that joined us, and maybe for all our contributors, those who have their videos on, we can just wave everyone by and we call it a day. Thank you for helping us, and thank you, Emrys. Thank you to the various contributors and to our partners for making this happen. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Congratulations again, and fantastic to see
you.
this come
Bye.
out.
Thank you. Bye.
Congratulations.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.